You ever wonder what would happen if Bubbles ever became an internet sensation? Yeah, neither did I, but hey, we're gonna find out regardless because that's what this episode of the Powerpuff Girls 2016 is all about. 15 minutes of fame. True to its name, the third episode of the reboot brings another instance reflective of 2010's pop culture with a story that places heavy emphasis on becoming a popular YouTube sensation. Yep, Bubbles strikes it big when one of the videos she uploads to the internet goes viral, earning her a plethora of subscribers that simply explode her into internet stardom. At least temporarily, as provided by the implications of the title 15 Minutes of Fame. The name itself is pretty straightforward. It's not really a pun on anything more so than just a common phrase used in everyday language, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And considering the theme of the episode, this was a pretty good naming choice if I do say so myself. However, in regards to the premise of Bubbles making a name for herself on the internet because of a viral video, I just have to say that I was very, very wary when this episode came out because, as we all know, the PPG reboot does not typically lend itself to doing a good job of making timeless episodes. Although, never rule out the fact that there's no real way of telling where the future will take us in 20, 30 years, so for all we know, this could still be accurate by then. But either way, let's just get right into the episode itself so we can see what all 15 Minutes of Fame has in store for us. Without further ado, let's roll.
Over here is our newest acquisition to the Natural History Museum. A real saber-toothed cat from the Ice Age.
So the episode begins with the girls attending a school field trip to the Natural History Museum with their other classmates, led by an overly enthusiastic tour director that seems to have it on for making intentionally terrible puns. She's going on about various things throughout the museum when she brings the kids to a halt at their newest attraction, a real-life saber-toothed cat frozen from the Ice Age. Special emphasis on the word cat, for that's what the episode refers to it as instead of the more commonly named saber-toothed tiger, especially for reasons that will be important later on. Keep this attraction in mind because in essence it acts as the centerpiece that ties together the first and third acts. Jared certainly is, and an episode that features the girls going to a museum on a class field trip and observing a prehistoric creature frozen in a block of ice? Could it be? Nah, they wouldn't. The tour guide lady is really into her job, it seems, considering her enthusiasm for terrible one-liners simply makes you want to groan.
You know, this cat is so old that when he was around, General Skip, Townville's tallest tree, was only a mere sapling. A fact I'd call unbelievable.
Boo! It's worth noting that the kids are initially shown to be laughing along with these bad puns at first, when in reality they aren't paying attention at all because they're all too caught up in their cell phones watching the latest viral video online. Turns out this isn't just any old video though, it's the next big thing that's taking the internet by storm, and it just so happens to have been recorded by none other than our very own Bubbles. The footage itself is actually pretty minor and harmless, seeing as it's a simple little video of Blossom and Buttercup sneezing simultaneously and bumping into each other.
Don't sneeze.
I like this because it's something easy and cute. Nothing over exaggerated that seems like the person filming the video was trying to make it deep and impressionable. Videos like that just seem as though the original creator is trying maybe a bit too hard. The common trend with most viral videos is that they're simple in concept and mostly accidental, as is the case with Bubbles' claim to fame right here. It's cool to see how humble she is when being complimented by her classmates. It shows how unintentional the fame she's receiving was because at the heart of her videos lies passion and creativity. She made the video for the fun of it, and that's in part the biggest lesson I identified from it, especially since I do that sort of thing myself as a small YouTuber. I make videos because I love doing it, and if a video happens to catch a lot of people's attention, then hey, that's really cool. But to me, it's not about the attention. It's about sharing something I made with other people so that they can enjoy it, so that it can entertain them. Just like the way Bubbles' sneezing video does right here. I can say right off the bat that I really relate to this episode on multiple levels for what it depicts the life of an internet video creator to be, in some sense. Sure, 15 Minutes of Fame isn't perfect, and it certainly misses a lot of cues, as we'll see, but there is certainly some truth to be found in it as well. And I do want to add that while yes, Bubbles gaining internet popularity through a viral viral video is a plausible scenario that could occur, there's also a part of me that noticed that the girls would probably already have internet fame due to their main hobby. Considering the Powerpuff Girls are, well, superpowered children who fight bad guys and stop evildoers. I mean, I just figured the girls would already have a reputation online simply from recording them flying around and shooting I-beams, doing heroic activities such as fighting a giant monster on camera or something. I feel like that would jump them into super stardom way faster than a simultaneous sneeze video. This just doesn't seem like the most probable scenario in context to the show, considering the characters we're dealing with here. I mean, sure, nothing's to say that this kind of video can't go viral, but this being the main reason why Bubbles becomes E-famous just seems like it's blatantly missing the fact that the girls are literally floating in the video. Regardless of whether or not Blossom and Buttercup sneeze at the same time, most people would probably give the video clicks purely because the girls are floating, and that's not something you see every day. Not to degrade the presence of the sneeze video itself, since I do understand the reason for why it was chosen. Barry stops by Bubbles to inform her of how rapid her channel is exploding, showing her how her subscriber count is already bigger than another mega popular in-universe viral video known as Crotchetti Cat. Not Crotchety Cat, Crotchetti Cat. And my boy Barry ends up telling Bubbles that she's super successful and that if she keeps up the great work, she'll become a famous director someday. Oh, Barry. Barry, why you gotta go misleading Bubbles like that, huh? Come on, she was doing fine and then you just had to go put these little seeds of greed in her head. You're like the true villain of the episode. If it weren't for you, Bubbles wouldn't even go into this little tirade she's about to have, so thanks for that. I like you, Barry, but that was just cold. That's right, because of Barry's prominent and persuasive words, Bubbles ends up entering a fantasy in her head where she sees herself getting a ton of recognition from her popularity while driving down Townsville Boulevard in her hot pink convertible. Similarly to the style of Greenwing last episode, Bubbles' fantasy has a lot of randomness to the characters that show up to support her, ranging from a leprechaun to a fairy to a short old cowboy to a kid in a giraffe suit. It's honestly super weird and doesn't really feel like a fantasy Bubbles would imagine happening in the sense that there's also a distinct lack of animals. But as in Greenwing, this isn't too obnoxious because it's brief and emphasizes that Bubbles is caught in her head. There's also this buff, orange, shredded dude who hops onto the back of her convertible asking her to sign his scar, and true to her name, she signs it Bubbles with actual bubbles.
Will you sign my appendicitis scar? Whoa, you signed it with actual bubbles!
Yeah, no shit!
Okay, even I found that to be amusing, but I wish this dude didn't have to spell out the joke for us when we can clearly see it happen for ourselves on screen. This is one of the most straightforward jokes in the entire series so far, and honestly, I find it hard to believe that there's a single person out there who would not get this, so I question why the show feels the need to spell it out for everyone when it's right there for us to see for ourselves. It's like the show doesn't trust its audience to understand humor half the time because the show feels the need to explain and or indicate most of the jokes right after they happen. Just let the gag do its thing and move on. Whether or not it's funny is up to the audience, and acknowledgement is only going to do more harm than good in these situations. But in this situation, Bubbles comes to find that she's been fantasizing for so long that everyone had gone home hours ago and the museum is about to close for the night.
The museum is closed. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Oh, yeah, Angela, still got it. Swish.
What was his point? I have no idea. Dude, I don't get it. I don't get it either.
That wasn't a pun. That was a factual statement, saying that Bubbles can't stay at the museum because it's closed and there are regulations preventing that, but she doesn't have to go home because she has the free will to go wherever she wants within those regulations. What? Cut back to the girls' home where Bubbles is forcing the professor to achieve the proper lighting and informing Blossom and Buttercup of their new roles in this upcoming video she has planned. The three of them exchange a few words in regards for how Bubbles is suddenly expecting her sisters to take this whole acting deal way more seriously than before, but they aren't exactly open to the idea. It's a good moment for showing how Blossom and Buttercup see the video for what it is and don't let the fame and attention go to their heads, unlike Bubbles, who ends up getting completely devoured by it. Honestly, considering the way Bubbles acts, this just shows how bad her character can truly get in most of her featured episodes. It's similar to the way she behaved in Bubbles of the Opera and Road Trippin' from season 1, where she gets so lost in her own facade that she chooses to neglect any and all outside perspectives because she's so full of herself and thinks she's so in the right. She over-exaggerates to such an irritable degree that doesn't make me feel any sympathy towards her character while she's going through it, as seen with this exchange of dialogue right here.
It was just an accident.
And you didn't direct anything. You were just lucky enough to catch it on your phone.
Lucky? Or did I know just when and how and why to capture the moment? Lucky.
This doesn't sound like someone a lot of people would want to side with in this situation, considering how pretentious and stuck up she sounds. It's such a jarring contradiction to the way she acted at the beginning of the episode, where she was very humble and proud of her achievement without shoving it down everyone else's throats. Honestly, Bubbles' shift in priorities and personality makes her a very unlikable character in this episode because she's such a dick to her family. Either way, Bubbles is still my least favorite character in the episode because of her obnoxious, stuck-up behavior. She completely misses the point of the first video, as Blossom explains, because it was just a silly occurrence that Bubbles happened to catch on her phone. Not this grand auteur production that makes people perceive the world in a new and innovative way. It's a video of Blossom and Buttercup sneezing and hitting each other in the head. It's simple and funny, and Bubbles is completely oblivious to that fact. Now, because she got a little famous, she's taking the situation way too seriously in order to keep attention on her. My biggest takeaway from all of this is that I never want to become this type of person. I'm not going to put on this facade and pretend to be someone I'm not. This is genuine Shadow Streak talking right here. Doesn't matter how big or small my channel is, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing because that's what I value most. And wow, this episode is really giving me a lot of introspection right now, I gotta say. Even with Bubbles' conceited attitude, which I dislike immensely, 15 minutes of fame is really getting me to evaluate my own standards and reflect on why I make videos in the first place. For that, I can appreciate this episode. I can actually speak from experience with this sort of thing because I've been uploading YouTube videos for over 2 years at the time of this review, which isn't typically the case with some of these episodes. But enough about me. We'll continue on with the episode itself after the break.
Why do I hire such ungrateful actors? I, the director, with reviews like LOL and liked. How can you not appreciate my greatness? All I wanted was to change the world. Is that too much to ask? All I wanted was to change the world. Is that too much to ask? Is it? All right. We'll shoot another video.
Yeah, fine. Yeesh.
Good. Now let's make moving art.
And moving art she makes. Well, not exactly. For, you see, the next day at school, she comes barging into the room, interrupting Miss Keene's class to put her newest creation on display for her entire group of peers to see. And it is an intentional disaster. Like, seriously, this completely takes that Zeitgeist video from Road Trippin' and obliterates it with the most meaningless parody of prestigious art forms imaginable. The best way for me to describe it is to say that it emphasizes how art is supposed to be this idea of finding meaning and interpreting said meaning from something that looks meaningless at face value. For example, the typical artwork that looks like someone vomited a rainbow onto a canvas and called it art may not seem like it's very practical, but somebody out there could find an immeasurable amount of value in it and would be willing to shell out mounds of dough in response. I'm not sure why any sane person would do such a thing, but that's the direction Bubbles decided to take with her idealized vision that she has for her work. She's essentially taking all of the fun out of filmmaking with this. The first video wasn't made with the intent of preaching some deep introspection into the minds of society. It's a simple sneeze video that makes people laugh. Now she's making a lifeless, grayscale mess of a movie in an attempt to get popular, which is something the Bubbles we know would never do.
The Bubbles you know is gone!
Well, yeah. I guess that's true, isn't it? This isn't the way to go about getting popularity, even if that is one of the major goals Bubbles wishes to achieve in making this video. Nah, if she wants to do that, she just needs to make videos on whatever's currently trending and a bunch of dank memes. The video consists of Blossom working at a deli shop of some sorts and calling off an order number, to which Buttercup responds in the distance. Honestly, it's just really peculiar. It's mocking high art the same way Road Trippin' did with its incomprehensible clusterfuck of non sequiturs, composed by Blossom and Buttercup dressing themselves up in giant milk cartons.
Milk,
Chocolate milk.
milk.
Chocolate milk. Do not cry over spilt milk. Chew. Fin or begin.
I'd show the entire film in full, but due to copyright, I'm going to fill this part in with a bit of my own commentary and editing instead. But I can assure you that it definitely contains more of this. As I explained with Green Wing in my last review, if the reboot wants to pull off the LOL so random aspect, then finding outlets like this is at least a better way to go about it than just having some random colorful shit dancing everywhere on screen. In a sense, it's random because it shows how Bubbles took this whole auteur filmmaking phase of her life to an absolute extreme after the fame got to her head. Yeah, I don't get the actual content of the film, but from one point of view, that's kind of the purpose of its existence. Sure, to some it's just dumb and random and isn't funny whatsoever, but to me, I see what the episode is saying here. When you take the fun out of something, it's probably not going to be well received amongst your peers, nor are they going to have any interest in it. It's better to cater to people by making something fun that you also enjoy that could either make people laugh or thrilling with action-packed scenes instead of attempting to draw them in with some deep existential reflection.
At least the crickets liked it.
My eyes! I can't see! I can't unsee!
Yeah, that's a relatively fitting reaction, all things considered. What's even more fitting is that Miss Keene and her students follow suit and all jump out the window the same way in response to her atrocity she calls moving art, leaving just Bubbles and her sisters to remain alone in the classroom. And I mean, like, dang, that's kinda harsh, don't you think? Apparently getting cut by broken glass and potentially harming a bunch of small children is more luxurious than watching a 60-second short film. I mean, it's not like the film promoted anything outright negative. Dang, Miss Keene, some role model you are. But then again, when it comes to the internet, people like to go to extremes and exaggerate, and this video alone ends up causing Bubbles' entire fan base to drop off at an exponential rate unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Wait, what? I'm losing all my subscribers!
All right, I gotta leave, okay?
John, we just started. Come on, man.
Listen, there's a lot to see in this life. I'm not wasting it here.
Never in a million years did I imagine that I would hear the phrase, "I'm losing all my subscribers," in the Powerpuff Girls. I mean, if anything, Bubbles should probably write a letter to the platform she's on commenting about the fact that she somehow currently has negative subscribers. I'd honestly say she should at least have one based on the fact that someone laughed at her video in the comments. Then again, that could be laughing at her, not with her. Ah well, at least the person didn't end up making a "what are those" joke like the user below them did. This is where she begins to go haywire and blame her sisters for her failures. She's gotten to the point of craving all of the attention that she's disregarding the people around her, pushing them away instead of properly communicating with them, and failing to see that she's the one doing so in the process. Blossom outright tells her that fame isn't everything, and Bubbles just lashes out at her, insulting her performance ability and Buttercup's atrocious comedic timing.
And you call that comedic timing?
That was a comedy?
Don't question my genius!
She completely ignores what her sisters are telling her, blinded by the fact that she thinks it's all about her, that she's the one being victimized, and as a result she makes ad hominem statements blaming other people for her own mistakes. Blossom even makes a completely fair counterpoint that she should just go back to making videos for fun, and yet somehow Bubbles leads herself to believe that fun is not the answer to getting her fans back when, hello, that's one of the top 5 most common reasons why someone would want to watch a video in the first place. Her 15 minutes of fame are essentially up at this point. She's lost most of the following she had accumulated because she stopped making videos for fun and started down this completely different path that nobody liked, becoming a completely different person in the process instead of sticking true to herself. But alas, nobody is convincing her otherwise, so she barges out of the room and flies off to vent about how nobody understands her creative vision, blaming her fans for not getting how great her videos are. Again, another major thing that content creators should never do. And so, in order to earn all of her subscribers back, she flies back to the museum and gets the idea to earn all of her fans' undivided attention once again by catching their eye with a giant cat video. She melts the ice with her eye beams and releases the Sabretooth from its frozen imprisonment, allowing it to roam around Townsville chasing after Bubbles and causing a wake of destruction in its path. So, I guess I was right about the funny feeling earlier, that this episode is reusing a similar idea seen in See No Evil from the original, only instead of a caveman being freed, it's a Sabretooth. You know, I wouldn't outright say this is the first example of season 2 of the reboot just outright copying an entire episode from the 98 series, but this is certainly a case of repeating the exact same thing that the original has already done once again. It's not the most extreme case, but I guess this is an instance showcasing that season 2 still isn't completely doing its own thing and retreading old territory in some parts. The pursuit of Bubbles continues as she flies as fast as she can all throughout Townsville, which Buttercup and Blossom call her out on after they see her go by.
Ah! What's that? Bubbles?
Yep.
And the saber-toothed cat from the museum?
Yep.
Think she released it to make a cat video in order to stay famous?
Yep.
Let's go.
That was amusing, I won't lie. And they do just that, warning Bubbles that she's made a huge mistake, but end up getting the three of them knocked down by the Sabretooth in one hit. This whole scene boils down to Buttercup chucking Bubbles' phone away from her and telling her everything she's doing is wrong, calling her a huge jerk, and finally making her come to her senses. Unlike previous episodes where Bubbles becomes this huge jerk and then doesn't really change from it during her moment of realization, I can at least appreciate that she does a better job at learning from the error of her ways and actually redeeming herself here. It's an improvement compared to the likes of other episodes where she just realizes she was in the wrong but doesn't really do anything to make up for it and pretends like it never happened. No, here she manages to catch the attention of the saber-toothed tiger by using her Green Lantern powers to disguise herself as a mouse and run away while it pursues after her.
It's not working! Shake it a little!
No, that's okay. Please don't.
Look at me! I'm a big tasty mouse!
Thanks for that. And it looks like we also finally got a Wilhelm scream too. Guess I can check that one off the list. I'm honestly not sure where Buttercup got this plan from, but I guess it makes sense, you know, considering cats chase mice. I also like this nice attention to detail with Buttercup just chilling on her phone, because at first it's played off as if she's not really paying attention to Bubbles flying for her life, but as we'll see momentarily, there's more to it than just that. I don't really see what purpose the top hat or diaper serve though.
Watch out for those really sharp teeth! Oh! Good thing I wore that diaper for 2 reasons!
Oh, well then. Man, all 3 episodes so far just have to have some sort of bathroom or gross out joke, don't they? With the interruption gag in The Last Donicorn to the earwax gag in Green Wing to now this here in 15 minutes of fame. That's one thing I miss from season 1. Less of this kind of content was going on. Bubbles ultimately runs up the tree and gets the giant feline stuck in it, magically losing her director's outfit in the process and breaking continuity, and allowing for some helicopters to come in and ship the giant cat off to Citiesville. Remember how I pointed out that Buttercup was on her phone? Well, it turns out that she was actually recording the whole thing between Bubbles and the Sabretooth and put it online, which is what leads to Bubbles ultimately earning back all of her subscribers. Thus, the episode comes to a close with Bubbles ultimately concluding that she's just going to make videos for fun now, not really focusing on the fame and fortune, and just letting those come later instead of pushing so hard towards them. Besides, she'd rather be the one in front of the camera anyways. Honestly, considering how out of touch the reboot tends to be with pop culture, this came as a bit of a shock to me that it was able to represent how one shouldn't act when they achieve internet stardom, or any stardom really. While I may not like Bubbles' attitude in the middle, I can forgive her for making up for it by apologizing and owning up to her mistakes, even fixing them the way she did with the saber-toothed tiger. This was definitely intentional after all, although most of the humor in the episode completely fell flat for me, aside from that one where Buttercup just says yup to everything Blossom states. Again, we have bathroom humor here. It's really starting to become a common thing in the show, and considering how sparse it was in the first season, that's definitely a disappointment to me. I honestly wish the show would stray far enough away from it, if not completely, that there's at least enough space to make the jokes few and far between. I'd have to say that out of the first 3 episodes of season 2, this is probably my favorite one yet, but I might be a bit biased because I have that personal connection that I rarely find myself having with this show. I guess that's why I like it so much. But anyways, that about does it for everything I have to say on Bubbles' 15 minutes of fame. Thank you all for watching, and till next time, Shadowstreak, signing off.